Blakemore, technology presenter here at CX Today, and this week in our big news update we will be dissecting the top news stories over the past couple of weeks with an exclusive interview with a senior analyst from Cavell. In this episode we will be focusing on stories like Avaya appoints a new CEO, Microsoft launches a digital contact center platform, and Zendesk reports their Q2 losses. So let's get straight into it. A story which has been hot in the news right now is that Avaya has appointed Alan Masarek as a new president and CEO of the company, replacing Jim Chirico. Chirico is stepping down after nearly 15 years of service, and this change in the C-suite leadership might have been influenced by recent underperformance, since the company also announced cost-cutting measures to generate $225 million and $250 million in annual cost reductions, starting in Q1 of fiscal 2023. CX Today's senior editor Charlie Mitchell has been speaking to Patrick Watson, senior analyst from Cavell, in a special interview discussing the biggest news over the last couple of weeks in the CX landscape, including this important change in Avaya. Let's take a look.
So first off, let's start off with Avaya. There's been kind of a change at the top of the company with a new CEO coming in. Where do you think that the vendor will go from here?
Well, it is really interesting, and there's been this sort of ongoing transition at Avaya for a number of years. Obviously, you know, one of the stalwarts of the customer experience industry, huge installed base of what you would consider on-premises or legacy contact centers globally, and that sort of global footprint is part of their Avaya's challenge as well. And I think you have to go back a couple of weeks for the background. So Avaya downgraded its sort of financial forecasts, and since then we've actually seen the confirmed financials, and they weren't particularly positive. Effectively, Avaya is paying huge interest on its existing debts. And that effectively may lead to some financial issues and may lead to a sort of cash shortage. So following that news about the financials, which, you know, hit the industry and wasn't generally unexpected, but they were maybe slightly more negative than we were expecting, they announced that Jim Chirico, who I'd known and been at Avaya for a number of years, was stepping down as CEO and to be replaced by Alan Masarek. And I know Alan from his time at Vonage at CEO, and he did a really good job there in terms of some of the transformation of Vonage. And generally, when I was doing the prep for this call, I was looking around the industry, and the perception is from people who know him a lot better than me and understand what he's done at Vonage and in previous roles, that he's a really good appointment to try and achieve Avaya's goals. And I think the first priority is going to be the financial side of things. So it's how bad any cash flow issue is going to be. And there's this sort of looming Chapter 11 discussion. Obviously, Avaya were in Chapter 11 previously, and it's whether they re-enter Chapter 11 or if they try and avoid that. But I think sort of following that from a sort of go-to-market general perspective, the goals remain the same for Avaya, and it's to continue that cloudification, cloud-first transformation strategy that Jim Chirico and the rest of the organization had been pushing for quite a while. And effectively, that really hinges on Avaya's migration strategy. So as I said, they've got this huge installed base of contact centers globally and contact center users, but they are struggling to convert into cloud consumption subscription seats. And we've seen that within their UCaaS model with the partnership with Ring Central. They've tried to come up with these different models to try and overcome this migration story. And I think that is going to be the real challenge for Masarek, is effectively continuing and accelerating Avaya's journey to cloud and really trying to solve this. How do they move those what you consider legacy premises-based customers into Avaya cloud contact center seats on a subscription model?
Yeah, lots of really interesting stuff there, and kind of building on your point there, kind of the Vonage CEO coming in and how they will migrate all these customers from on-premise to cloud. I think he had quite a bit of success with Vonage and kind of going through the CCaaS route, and it might be quite interesting to see if he takes kind of more of a different approach or kind of does that again. Yeah, it's interesting, very interesting topic, but I'm sure we could talk about that one for ages, as we could our next topic, which I have to put you on the list, and that's Microsoft recently launching a new CCaaS solution. It'd be really great to hear your thoughts, Patrick, on kind of what you made of the announcement.
Yeah, I think this is something that analysts before me and myself over the last couple of years have been forecasting for a long time. If if you took a sort of aerial look at Microsoft's software portfolio over the last few years, you'd say, where are any potential weaknesses within that software? And one of the things you probably have said is the experience of customer experience products, so contact center and that sort of area. So the latest update follows the news, I think it was at the end of last year, that Microsoft was expanding the capabilities of Dynamics 365. So Dynamics is obviously its CRM platform, and they were expanding the capabilities of Dynamics 365 customer service and effectively adding some more digital communication channels to the sort of customer handling solution within the CRM platform. So during Inspire last month, Microsoft exhibited a much wider offering, specifically sort of titled within the contact center space, and they're calling it Microsoft Digital Contact Center Platform, which is hugely innovative, as you might expect. And effectively, this isn't a single product that you can purchase. It's not a straight off the shelf particular line that you might be able to buy as a customer. It's more a segmentation of different services from different areas of the Microsoft portfolio across things like Dynamics 365, Nuance, which was the company that Microsoft acquired back in March, which does conversational intelligence, Power Platform, Microsoft Teams, obviously, and Azure. So effectively, different aspects and different pieces from those different solutions combined effectively could create a set of contact center building blocks, which customers can use to build their own solutions or to combine them with existing contact center solutions to sort of augment those. So it's a really interesting development. As I said, analysts have been predicting for years that Microsoft would look to move into the customer experience space. I actually was thinking they would acquire someone, and I suppose the acquisition of Nuance has given them sort of technical capabilities within that area. But I thought they might buy a dedicated CCaaS provider, but it doesn't look like they're going to do that. They're going to use maybe smaller acquisitions for a piecemeal approach, and then obviously the capabilities that they've developed internally. And I really don't think we should underestimate that. You know, Microsoft spends billions of dollars every year on R&D, and their capability in terms of accelerating the development of a platform is huge. So I think it's really interesting news, and it really does show that Microsoft is serious about contact center and the customer experience market generally.
Yeah, lots of really fascinating points there. I love your analogy of it's more of kind of the building blocks for a contact center solution, and they're very innovative, as you say. Kind of Nuance is kind of best in class with conversational AI. I think that's a great example, and I'm sure Microsoft will build on it as they did with Teams kind of 5 years ago, and look at that now. I think, yeah, as you say, it's going to be extremely interesting to watch how the Microsoft journey in contact centers and customer experience overall will develop. But finally, now kind of switching topics once again. It would be great to turn our attention to Zendesk, who recently kind of announced quite big Q2 losses. I just wanted to get your thoughts on how you think that Zendesk will likely bounce back from that under its new owners.
Well, again, I think it's important to sort of set the scene here, and the history on this one is particularly interesting. So if you go back to the start of the year, and I remember I saw this article online, was that Zendesk's board had rejected a $17 billion offer from a sort of private equity consortium, and they rejected it on the basis that it undervalued Zendesk overall. So just 6 months later, so not very long ago, it was sold to private money for just over $10 billion. So there's a big shortfall there between the $17 billion that they rejected at the start of the year, I think it was February, and the $10 billion that eventually the board have accepted. And there's probably a couple of reasons behind that. Obviously, markets generally, but also SaaS markets have dropped during that 6 months period. But still, the valuation drop from Zendesk is still a big hit for confidence. And in that time, as you said, they posted some pretty big losses in Q2, which effectively have probably driven that acquisition at a lower value. They've, as well as the sort of external, macro market factors, the financials that they've released internally have sort of driven the price down to a point where they've accepted a $10 billion offer. So in terms of where they go from here, it's difficult. And I must confess, the CRM market is not my main area of focus, but one thing that we hear about a lot at Cavell, and we are increasingly looking at the CRM market in terms of our own proprietary research, is how competitive it is. So if you think of somebody, when you think of CRM, you probably think of Salesforce, market leader. But when we looked at the sort of market share of Salesforce, it's only got about in the 20 percentiles for market share. And there are a huge number of providers sort of gunning for the CRM space. And one thing that we've seen and we've heard from technology providers at Cavell Group is more and more about verticalized, vertical specific solutions. So across the technology industries, general, so UCaaS and CCaaS as well, but particularly within CRM. So providers who specialize in providing solutions for particular industries, whether that's hospitality or healthcare. And that is a challenge for those larger CRM providers, people like Zendesk or people like Salesforce, who are competing effectively with a more generic offering, although they do obviously offer verticalization specific products within their sort of set. But they're competing with these sector niche specific offers, and I think that's a real challenge. But generally though, I don't think it's bad news for Zendesk. As I said, I think there's sort of macro market factors which have been playing a part anyway. The markets aren't doing very well. We're probably at a low point here. So the market's in a tough place and it's probably going to bounce back. And Zendesk still has great presence within the market. It's got a good market share, good reputation. So I would expect its fortunes to pick up and improve under the new investors.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going back to the start of your answer there, that it's fascinating to kind of see that drop almost from 17 billion to 10.2 billion. But as you say, I mean, it's a kind of a general trend across the market. You've seen lots of other vendors kind of have similar falls in valuation. It would be interesting to see if they do follow that path that you painted out there almost of going into more kind of industry specific realms. But yeah, it's another one to watch very closely, and it's been great to speak to you today, Patrick, and hear kind of all your thoughts on the Avaya, the Microsoft, and the Zendesk news. So thank you very much for joining us.
No, my pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
Excellent, and thank you to everybody for watching too. Bye for now.
That was an insightful talk with some interesting key points. Thank you, Patrick, for joining us. That's all from me, but be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notification alerts so you don't miss any more of our news analysis. To keep up to date with all the latest news from the CX world, sign up to our weekly newsletter by clicking on the link below this video. Thanks for watching.